Hey guys, hopefully everybody is doing well on their Theamine prog, and maybe some of you guys have already cleared Theamine. If so, congratulations. But for me, I was progging Theamine on stream last night, and there were a surprisingly large number of people that came in and asked me, like, hey, why aren't you playing Deathblow Striker? Because I was playing Esso, right? And to that, I was like, wow, there's a surprisingly large number of people that I guess don't think that Esso is like viable or think like Esso is way inferior to Deathblow, or there might be other reasons why people are asking this, right? And I wanted to use this video today to really address some of the reasons why I don't really play Deathblow anymore. And it really is at the end of the day preference, right? At the end of the day, I think both Esso and Deathblow are very viable builds. I think Deathblow is a little bit higher in terms of damage ceiling compared to Esso, but in my opinion, the average raid performance of both builds are going to be about the same. And even Benji in his video about his striker talks a little bit about this as well.
So, is everyone on the way back to Deathblow just because it's higher DPS than Trixian? Not really. I've heard stories of I've tried Deathblow, but I'm going back to Esso. I'm back to Esso, but I'm addicted to big numbers and I'm going back to Deathblow. Almost every striker is playing what they prefer and not just following one meta.
And first off, before we get into the reasons why, I wanted to show you guys a little bit of some stats. In Korea, actually, there are more Esso players than Deathblow players. So it's actually not that surprising that I'm playing Deathblow, and it really seems like, in general, for them, they haven't really seen the, I guess, huge difference between Deathblow and Esso. And like Benji says, people are just kind of playing what they like to play. And for me, after playing Deathblow for a while after the changes, it was my main build when the changes came in. I actually didn't really like the changes to Esso. I thought that 4 spender was a little bit more clunky than 5 spender. After playing Deathblow for a while and then also trying the sweeping kick build that most people in Korea are playing right now for Deathblow, I just felt at the end of the day, for the content that we have, Deathblow is a little bit too clunky for my tastes. And I think overall, Esso is going to be a lot more flexible, a lot better of a class overall. I actually do think that Esso is a better designed class overall compared to Deathblow, because it's just a little bit more flexible, it provides more to the party, and I think overall it just has a better feel of playing. And I wanted to put this really in the context of the content that we have in the game. At the moment, Lost Ark in the West still has a ton of those bosses that move around a lot and like really are super mobile. They're not really like the old Trixian dummies that we have, and for the most part, I think I've talked about this in a video in the past, in Korea, the bosses there are pretty Trixian dummy-like. And because of that, I think Esso is just more suited and more suitable for the content that we have in the game. Take the Theamine Gate 1, for example. This boss moves around like crazy. And because of that, I just feel like Esso is a much more flexible playstyle, and it's a much faster burst compared to Deathblow. And because of how fast the boss moves, how much it moves, and how much it turns, right? It really is more, I guess, Deathblow is a much harder to play spec than Esso in these situations. And you can say, oh, skill issue, right? And I kind of agree. Actually, I do agree. I think that if you're really good at it and you can play Deathblow to that level, I think Deathblow will still outperform Esso in pretty much every situation if you're able to play it. But for the average player, and maybe even more so, right? Other than those at the people at the tippy top, I think that Esso is going to perform way better than Deathblow in situations like this because of the fundamental way of how Deathblow works. And let me hop into the game to kind of show you. So fundamentally how Deathblow works is that you want to fill up every single one of these bubbles, because every extra bubble that you have on your character filled up will make the Esso skills do more damage. So everything in your rotation is focused around getting your bubbles to max, then letting go of an Esso skill, right? And that is fundamentally how this class works. And typically, you want to be able to hit 2 generators into a spender, right? Like this. Now, this poses a little bit of a problem when it comes to bosses. So when bosses are moving around very quickly, right? You have some skills that are quite slow. For example, Boom Flash Kick takes a while to finish, right? If you're using Vicious Tiger Dance, you might be using, some of you guys might not be using this focus hit tripod, right? You might be using the 2-hit tripod, and that makes it even slower, and it makes it 2 hits, right? And then also you have your Sky Shattering Blow, that's 2 hits, and overall, because of this, it makes it a little bit awkward when working with bosses that move around a lot. Because especially, I think, with Moonflash is probably the most egregious example of this. It's a multiple hit skill, and you need to hit every single one of those hits to be able to get your full bubbles, right? Like this, and then like that. You want to hit both hits. But what ends up happening a lot of times is when you're hitting Moonflash Kick and you hit the boss and it moves in the middle, you don't get that second hit off. And then you miss out on a ton of meter, which means you miss out on a ton of damage. Now, depending on what your situation is, you may make it up with your Storm Dragon Kick, but you might not, because you might not have hit much of your other skills as well, and it might mess up rotation even more, so you might let go of your skill, your SO skill, without full bubble, which again will reduce the amount of damage that you do. So when bosses are a lot more mobile, it's a lot harder to use Deathblow, and Deathblow becomes a lot less flexible in these situations because of that. And also, in general, it takes a lot more time to throw out 2 generators into a spender, right? You have to use 2 skills before you can use one of your damage skills. And this isn't the case with SO. Now I'm on my SO Striker. And as you can see, for my rotations, right, and everybody else, you can hit 1 spender, and then you get an SO skill off. Hit 1 spender, and this spender actually lets me take off 3 SO skills up, right? Or sorry, this generator. I hit 1 generator into a spender, 1 generator into a spender, right? This is a lot more flexible of a gameplay style because you're able to get off your big hitting skills much quicker compared to Deathblow. And in a situation where a boss is moving around a lot and your windows to attack are just a lot smaller, it's a lot more flexible to use a class like SO to target these bosses and kind of, tackle these problems, right? On Deathblow, you have to hit them twice, and in that amount of time, the boss may have moved like all the way over here, and now you gotta chase the boss over here, charge up your Tiger Strike, then the boss might move again, right? Whereas over here, if you really wanted to, you could just do Sky Shattering Blow into your Blast Formation, instant damage, right? Sky Shattering Blow into like Tiger Emerges, instant damage. Lightning Whisper, Tiger Strike, yes, you might have to charge it up a little bit, but basically instant damage. And you could say like, oh, but what about Call of the Wind God, right? You do kind of hold this the entire time. But the thing is, the big hit for Call of the Wind God does come out at the end, right? It does that big 22 mil that you see right there. In the middle, the hits do, a couple mil here and there. So you could just let go of your Call of Wind God early if you see the boss is about to move and get your biggest hit out. It's just a lot more flexible, in my opinion, of a playstyle compared to the Deathblow playstyle. It's more suitable for the game that we have right now. And when it comes to mobile bosses as well, right? I think the other area that SO has over Deathblow is its mobility, because you use Storm Dragon Kick as a part of your rotation in Deathblow. You use your Sky Shattering Blow into Storm Dragon Kick into Vicious Tiger Dance, right? I don't have Vicious Tiger Dance here, but you do that into your 3rd spender skill. But on SO, that is not part of your rotation. So you can really leave Storm Dragon Kick just to use as a way to upkeep Adrenaline, and also as a mobility skill, a true mobility skill. Because when you're on Deathblow, you always have this thing in the back of your mind where it's like, oh, if I use Storm Dragon Kick, I might lose out on some big damage for my next skill, right? And with SO, you just don't have to worry about that. It ends up being a lot more of a kind of flexible playstyle where you can be more mobile on the playfield, and especially when it comes to progging, right? Like Theamine. There's a lot of skills that one-shot you. And in the case where you've used your spacebar already, you want to be able to have a ready-to-access pretty much always there mobility tool. Whereas with Deathblow, yes, you can use it kind of as a last second kind of like, oh shit moment where I'm like, I need to use this, right? But at the same time, because you're using it in your rotation, it might not always be available. And with SO, this is pretty much always available for you to use. So that's another reason why I think that SO is just a better class overall and is the class that I choose to play at the end of the day. And that's about it for like kind of the points for everybody, like the points that apply to everyone. Now, here are the points for me and the reasons why I specifically don't play it, right? Because of the way that my character is built. I personally think that SO is better for me because of my elixirs. So as you can see here, I'm on crit elixirs, which means that I don't use master and I don't get that extra crit chance, right? So in this situation, when I'm playing Deathblow, I would ideally want to run, in my opinion, Adrenaline 3, because I just think that the crit rate that I have with Adrenaline 1 is pretty abysmal for my setup. So I need to run Adrenaline 3, but I don't have that. I actually have Adrenaline 1. So it makes it a little bit more clunky to play Deathblow without a crit synergy for that reason, in my opinion. You're kind of hovering around this weird 70 to 80% kind of crit rate area, and I think that's just a little bit too low for me, especially for my luck. I feel like I miss an abnormally large amount of crits all the time, so that is really tough for me, right? But with SO, I actually have the flexibility of running a crit ring. So on my main build, I actually do run a crit ring for SO Flurry most of the time. And because I have Adrenaline 1 and Critical Elixir. Now with this build, I'm able to do around like a mid to high 80% crit rate on average. And then when I get a crit synergy, another crit synergy, that boosts it up even more, right? So it just becomes a lot more consistent. And I also have the flexibility to swap in a spec ring as well. I don't have the highest quality spec ring just because I don't really use it very often. But when I do have the opportunity to have, let's say, 2 other crit sins in my party or something like that, or even 1 crit sin, I'd say, I can swap over to spec ring. And then that will round it out and make it a lot more consistent. You have this flexibility to play around with your accessories on SO that you just don't have with Deathblow, because Deathblow, you really just want to be at full spec, right? Whereas with SO, it works completely fine without full spec. You can use the crit ring, just be a little bit more flexible with your build and make it so that you're able to tackle any situation, any party, and kind of work around this fact that I am using this crit elixir with Adrenaline 1. So that's the reason why, again, on top of those other reasons that I talked about, for me specifically, I think that SO is going to be better for me to play. And I just personally enjoy it more, right? It's a lot less rigid. It's a lot more flexible. It feels like I'm actually playing a class as opposed to like a cardboard box. I don't know how to describe it. It's like an actual class as opposed to like scraps being put together and made into a class. Now, that being said, Striker is a class that does need help. So I think both builds are just clunky in their own way. But I just do think that SO at the end of the day is a little bit less clunky than the Deathblow build. So that's why I end up using SO over Deathblow. I don't know how many of you guys who are still playing Striker and haven't dropped it for Breaker are playing SO versus Deathblow. Let me know down in the comment section below if you're still kind of, behind this class, and let me know what build you're using and why. But as always, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to hit the like button, hit the sub button, ring the bell for notifications, and also I stream every single night on twitch.tv/MisoxShiru starting at 10 p.m. PST. So hopefully I see you guys on my stream, but if not, hopefully I'll see y'all on the next video. All right, guys, peace out.